Welcome to episode 393 of the Postal Hub podcast. I'm Ian Kerr. We're going to talk about parcel lockers in this episode. Shortly, I'll be joined by Julia Lockman, junior partner at OMNIC. We're going to delve into some of the key issues around parcel locker networks, viewing them as a whole system, understanding what's really going on there, how to design a network, understanding the environmental aspect of things. This is a special episode brought to us by OMNIC, and we're going to, as I said, delve into those aspects. So let's just get into it now. Julia Lockman, junior partner at OMNIC. Joining me on the line is Julia Lockman. Julia is a junior partner at OMNIC. Julia, welcome. Often when I've talked to people from OMNIC on the podcast and even away from the podcast, we often talk about how parcel lockers aren't just a lump of metal, and that if you're a delivery company and you buy a locker or a number of lockers, that doesn't guarantee any success, right? And if you buy a locker believing the hype or thinking it's going to deliver savings or environmental benefits immediately, that's sort of it's not a very profound way of thinking about it. So let's explore this a little bit today about how out of home works and how sort of the key things you need to bear in mind when you're launching a parcel locker network. Just before we get into the questions, do you have any sort of opening sort of comments about this, Julia?
Yeah, thanks, Ian, for the great question, and thank you for having me during this podcast today. So I would say that there is no definitive guide on how to launch a successful parcel locker network. There are, of course, some success stories, some great life hacks and hints, and some rules, standards, principles in general. But it all depends into the context where we're building this network, and also who is the target audience, what is the user behavior, many different things. But of course, we'll share some insights with you today so that can help everyone who wants to operate efficient parcel locker network do it in this direction.
I suppose we're saying that context is important.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all approach.
No, that's not, unfortunately.
So let's talk about the approach to parcel lockers and how we should view parcel locker networks. How would you advise delivery companies when they're starting out, they want to design a parcel locker network, how should they be viewing parcel locker networks?
The first fundamental question we need to ask ourselves is very simple. What are we actually building? Are we building an accumulation of parcel lockers, or are we building a system? And if we talk about parcel lockers as a tool that is supposed to give people more convenience, safety, or comfort, and at the same time give the network owners sustainable revenue, then we need to talk about a systematic approach to this business. And it's not about how many lockers are installed, in fact. It's more about the system here. It's a very important point that imagine you have lots of parcel lockers installed. Ask yourself a question. Is it a system? Because in some cases, you can have many lockers, but no system at all. So the quantity does not necessarily mean having a system. And the logical question, of course, here is how we actually understand what we see as a system. And there are a few insights for us here. So the first is the data. The system starts with the data and not with the metal. Data about who uses lockers, when they're used, how often, and understanding of peak periods, idle times, real usage scenarios as well. And without all this, we have just infrastructure, not a parcel locker network system. Secondly, a system shapes behavior. It does not just provide a service. When a system really works, a person doesn't think about it. A person will not think, okay, I could use a parcel locker. It will become a natural action, natural by default, and the obvious way to receive or send parcels. And the third one, finally, is that system always has a measurable value. So for users, it will be convenience, safety, accessibility. And for the network owners, it's a predictable and scalable income. And that's why when we talk about parcel lockers, we don't just say we installed X number of lockers. We need to talk about something else, whether a system has emerged or not.
You mentioned consumer behaviour, so the people who use the parcel lockers. Can you dive into that a little bit, please? What do you mean by that? Or what are the kind of things that you want to achieve when it comes to consumer behaviour?
Sure. It's the fact that the system must be natural and not optimized. All users, they don't think about the lockers and the locker networks as we do. So they don't think about it in logistics terms. They don't think about CO2 optimization or cost per parcel or about network efficiency. Instead, they ask questions subconsciously. Is it on my way? Is it safe here to receive my parcel? And is it easy for me to do right now? A parcel locker here is less about the service, is more about the change of behavior. So if you're aiming to reach this level of behavior, you need to understand where to install locker, how people will approach it. Is there a parking lot, for instance, if a person will drive to it? Who actually will use this locker? And which scenarios is it designed for? For example, if the locker has large compartments, or if the locker is accessible only for people that can reach this locker only driving by car, then we really need to say that the locker is for people who drive for specific use case, for heavy bulky products, for instance, and not for everyone. So service is a point, and behavior starts to shaping the system.
It sounds like we're talking about customizing the network for the market. So choosing the right locker network for the right market. So can you explain a bit about that? Why you wouldn't just say, well, look, this has worked in country X, it's going to work in our backyard. How should a delivery company approach this?
Exactly. That's specifically what I mean, because there is no universal product. Unfortunately, I would say. Here is a very big gap between specification and reality. Locker networks cannot be copied from country to country because we need to take a lot of factors into consideration. For instance, climate, heat, cold, humidity. If something works in Saudi, then it may not work in Italy, for instance. In Saudi, people have driving behavior, very hot climate, especially in summer. And then people drive between business centers, shopping malls, cinemas, residential buildings, offices, etc. And that means that they are inside. They don't walk around, they drive. And it means that it can be a good idea to install the locker indoors in Saudi. While in Italy, for instance, the climate is good. There are a lot of people wandering around the street. And here we can use lockers on solar panels and batteries, for instance. Also, we need to take into consideration the materials which must be used for the manufacturing of the parcel lockers. For example, if we understand that the locker will be installed by the ocean, the wind from the ocean contains a lot of salt. So it means that we need to use stainless steel here. So we cannot use another type of steel for this type of lockers. Or access conditions. So it's indoor, outdoor behavior, really 24/7 or not. Or usage patterns, frequency, how people use, how much time people use lockers, then peak behaviors. So context here is a part of the specification, definitely, because locker can look exactly the same on layout and have similar specification. But there are a lot of things that just never written in technical documents. And this context is exactly this point.
So while we're talking about the context, and you mentioned that some things are not written down, there is still a lot of data that a delivery company can bring when it comes to planning and optimizing out-of-home or parcel locker systems. How can a delivery company really get into this data and leverage this data to try and increase the chances of success in building a parcel locker network?
It's a very good question, because the data and everything that I will explain now is actually an invisible side of the parcel locker network efficiency. So first, the user sees a door, but the business value lives behind it. And everything that is behind this door is invisible, like the data. So the data alone has no value. Value comes from interpretation, decisions, and actions that are built based on this data. Collecting data is easy. You can collect lots of data, and with the parcel lockers having the software inside it, you actually can collect data about every trigger. But knowing what to do with this data is the difficult part. So first, it's about the business processes. What happens in peak periods? What data do we collect? How are the exceptions handled? When everything works in a success scenario, then it's like a good point. But our life is all about being unpredictable. That's why we need to understand how to work with exceptions. Out-of-home delivery is about managing expectations, obviously, and not just ideal scenarios. And that's when we come to user experience flows. So user experience is not just about interface. Of course, it's about how easy it is to collect or send parcel. That's definitely about it. But it's also about some real life situations. For instance, what should we do if the parcel is not collected? And what time is appropriate to wait for the parcel to be collected? What if the parcel is of wrong size? What if courier has a delay? So these aspects are paramount to be taken into consideration, and having an understanding of how it happens now, we can interpret these data and advise on some decisions, which then can be converted into actions. So the next one is the analytics. Analytics should support forecasting, of course, capacity planning, and proactive intervention. It's not just about reporting when something already went wrong, because if analytics shows us that something already went wrong, that's not about forecasting. It does not give you any benefits. And of course, system rules and design decision logic. It's about reservation logic, how we book sales. It's about prioritization and capacity conflicts. And a very good example here is airlines or hotels and their yield management system. Limited capacity, uncertain timing, competing priorities. Same thing about parcel lockers here. If you have analytics and you have retrospective data, you can understand how much of overbooking you can accept to the parcel locker. And it really helps in your utilization rate, because the utilization rate depends on how many parcels are stored daily. And our goal should be to increase this number. Yield management here supports this goal in the very best way. And there is, of course, no perfect algorithm. It's always a combination of factors. And as I mentioned, it depends on context, it depends on the company, on the market, on the user behavior. But collecting all this data, structuring it around in the system can give you a perfect tool that will help to build your network efficiently.
What about network optimization? We're talking here about building a network efficiently. How can you optimize that network? Because that's the kind of thing that we hear a lot from postal operators and delivery companies. They've invested in a parcel locker network. They think that it can perform better. So how can they achieve that?
Yeah, first, it's about choosing the right tool for the certain type of work or the goal you have. So that's the first one. So you need to choose the locker that will work in this particular context. Then we move to location management. So locations must be chosen in a good way. It means that high foot traffic does not necessarily mean a good location. Passing by is not the same as using. And here you need to choose locations and ask yourself some questions. Is it safe, especially at night? Does this location has a parking? Is it really 24/7 accessible for the users? Some lockers look perfect in Excel and fail completely in real life. But when you have the allocations, then it's important to build the business processes around in a way that contribute to users and to couriers as well, because couriers are also part of the network. And when everything is built seamlessly, then it means that the network will have high chances on having good performance, of course. And then comes operational work. Operational work is also related to system. And then if you have the dashboards, the data, the recommendations, when you analyze this data and make your decisions based on numbers, then it means you really can make your parcel locker network perform great.
Let's talk about one of my favourite topics, and that's the environmental credentials of out-of-home delivery, and in this case, parcel locker networks. If you're a delivery company, you've got environmental targets to meet, you've got regulatory pressure, whatever else it might be. How can you try to best use parcel lockers to meet those environmental targets?
Yeah, that's a great topic. Thanks. And I think that parcel lockers, of course, are not automatically green. And I want to be very transparent and open here. If users and couriers drive to lockers, the environmental benefit disappears. Sustainability depends a lot on density, how many lockers are installed in this particular area. Then about proximity. Is it within easy reach? Is it within walkable distance? Is it on my way home or to work? Or can I do it in parallel while walking my dog? And then about behavior, because you can have a great density, but just the users do not feel that it suits their lifestyle and they cannot collect their parcels here. But only if these 3 points are connected, density, proximity, and behavior, it means that the locker network can be sustainable and can be green. Lockers, of course, work best in dense urban environments. Everyone knows that. But I would say that suburban and rural areas also can be structured in a green way with a close attention to location management as well. It's a very important topic. If the locker is installed somewhere where people can do some other part of their life, for instance, do groceries, and then they do groceries and collect their parcel, and they don't need to drive to this locker, then it actually can contribute to sustainability. And of course, low utilization can destroy efficiency in this case. So we need to always work on how to increase the utilization of the parcel network to make it green. And I would say that a locker becomes green only when the system aligns with how people actually move throughout the city. That's important.
Julia, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to setting up parcel locker networks, thinking of them as a system, for example, and all the other things we've talked about today. If you're a delivery company, postal operator, parcel carrier, or if you're setting up a brand new parcel locker network, how can people get in contact with OMNIC or with you to take this conversation further?
Sure. So just with the omnic.net website, or you can text me in LinkedIn, Julia Lockman. I will be happy to provide you support such an interesting topic like parcel locker network development and how to launch it efficiently. And if you have any specific questions related to your current operating network, or you would like to build a network, then let's talk and see how we can do it together in the most efficient way possible.
I'll put a link to the OMNIC website and to Julia's LinkedIn profile on the episode page on the Postal Hub website. So you can go there to thepostalhub.com, find the episode, and you'll see those links there. Julia Lockman, Junior Partner at OMNIC, thank you very much for joining us on the Postal Hub podcast today.
Thank you, Ian.
Next week on the Postal Hub podcast, Alan Barry joins us. We're going to talk about out-of-home delivery with Alan. We will, especially in the UK context. I think Following this week's episode, you'll find next week's episode enlightening as well. Lots of talk about out of home, and we're here for it. Who else is coming up soon? Peter Summers and many other great guests coming up in the coming weeks on the Postal Hub podcast. Don't miss an episode. That's a command, not a request. Subscribe to the Postal Hub podcast on your favourite podcast platform, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever floats your boat. You can subscribe to my email newsletter. I have a number of them. I have 3, in fact, at the moment. Maybe 4 soon. Who knows? Daily Delivery Digest. There's my weekly newsletter, which comes out whenever there's a new episode. And then there's the monthly Post Office Digest, a bit exclusive. You got to know me to get on the list, basically. What else? What else do I usually say here at the end? Email me if you want to get on the list. Ian@thepostalhub.com. And that's all, I suppose. I'm Ian Kerr. Thanks for listening in, and I look forward to your company next time on the Postal Hub podcast.